What a lovely fish. Well, there we go. This is the first bream of the day. Here we are. That's the first bream of the day. We're here at the fabulous Kingsbury Water Park, and we're going to show you a few tips on how to catch more of these this summer. Right, so my first tip for summer bream fishing is to mix your ground bait the night before. Now the reason I do this is it ensures that all the particles in your ground bait can fully absorb the water and they'll all sink right in my swim where I feed them. I want my bait on the bottom where I want the bream to feed. I don't want bits coming off and fish moving out the swim. So I want to keep everything on the bottom. All I've done, I've got 2 kilo bag of F1 Dark, I've got a kilo bag of Pro Green fish meal, mixed them together, took out what I need, and then mixed them up. So I've slightly overwetted my ground bait, bagged it up and kept it in the fridge. Now it's really important to keep it in the fridge. In the summer it's warm, and keeping it in the fridge just ensures that your ground bait's not going to go off, it's not going to affect it in any way, it's going to be as fresh as possible. So all I do when I get to the bank is open the bag up and push it through a riddle, and it should be pretty much ready to go. I might need to add an ever so slight bit of water to it just to make it perfect, but we're good to go. Perfect ground bait, just stick it through the riddle, make sure it all goes through. Lovely, and it feels spot on. There we go, so all my ground bait's through the riddle. No lumps, lovely ground bait, nice soft ground bait, perfect for what we need. Let's chuck it in the bowl and let's get fishing. When bream fishing, especially on big waters like we're on today at Kingsbury Water Park, you're going to need to use decent, strong tackle. You might only be fishing for a handful of bites, and when you get those bites, you don't want to be losing these fish. These natural waters, these big reservoirs, they have a lot of mussels in, some snags. You need to make sure that you're using decent gear. For me, as a minimum, I'm going to be using 0.16 power micron, and the smallest hook I'll go down to is a 14 MXB3. I'm going to be using big baits, big bits of worm, big bunches of maggots. I need to know that when I hook a fish, I'm going to land it. You don't need to go finesse, be confident in your fishing, use decent gear and make sure you land everything you hook. I keep all my hook links on these EVA spools in a hook box. They're all tied to 1 metre long, so I know if I need to, I can chop them down or I can use them at 1 metre. Positive tackle for big bream. There we go. Whoa, what an awesome slab from Kingsbury Water Park. Caught him on a section of worm on a size 12 MXB3 to 0.18. Decent strong tackle. He was never coming off. So I'm just baiting up again. I've got a couple of red worms on and a tip with a little pinky. Fill my feeder with my ground bait. So it's important that when we're bream fishing, that we're casting regularly. Even though we might be only looking for 4, 5, 6 bites, we need to keep some activity going in the swim. I like to keep casting regularly. I'll start off casting every probably 5 minutes to start with, just to keep that cloud of ground bait in the swim, some bait going through the water column. But because we mixed our bait up earlier, I know it's all going to sink on my spot. If I've not had a bite after an hour and a half, then I'll look to change things. I might have a couple of quick casts and then sit and wait, be patient, leave it for a bit, and then hopefully a fish moves in. If that doesn't work, then I'll change things up again. I might change the consistency of my ground bait and go back to those 5-minute casts. Regular casting keeps those fish coming. The fish are curious, they want to know what's going on. Once I've cast in, I'll set my line and I'll pick up my stopwatch. Now, the stopwatch allows you to keep an eye on your regular casting, make sure that you're regimented with your casting, keep an eye on it, but also it'll allow you to look for any patterns with bites. If you're getting bites after 2 minutes, then there's no need to leave your feeder in for 10 minutes each time. If all your bites are coming after 5 or 6 minutes, then you can leave it in that little bit longer. It just helps you keep an eye, not waste time, make the most of your fishing and your line in the water. That's quite a quick bite. It's come on 3 minutes, that bite. Now what I've done is, I'd not had a bite for a while. We'd had one fish, but I'd not had a bite for a while, and I've changed the consistency of my ground bait. Now that's something that can really make a difference. So what I've done is, with my ground bait, is made it really sloppy. So I've added some water to it. Look at that big dark fish. And made it really sloppy so it only just stays in on the cast. Now when the feeder hits the water, that's going to create a big cloud in the water, hang in the water. It's a great way, I'm going to need 2 hands to show this one off. It's a great way of getting fish like this into your peg. I talked about changing the consistency of my ground bait whilst I was playing that fish. Now I'm just going to quickly run through how I do it and what it looks like. So this is my tub of ground bait. I've got my tub of ground bait just as I got it out this morning. Nice normal as you would ground bait. But you'll notice I've got it in 2 sections. So I've got this bit is just where I keep my ground bait, and this is my sort of working corner where I can change it, I can adapt my ground bait to suit what I'm doing. But if I want to change and that's not what I want to do, I can just discard that quite easily rather than having to change my whole mix. I can easily change a little bit of my mix and then I'm fishing in a different way. So let's have a look at slopping up my ground bait. So all I've got is an atomizer. I'm just going to give it a good spray, and I mean quite a good spray of water, and then all I'm going to do is work that around. Just knead it up a bit. I need a bit more water. Keep going, keep adding more and more water, little bits as I go. I don't want it too wet so it doesn't stick in my feeder when I cast, but I want it just wet enough that when that feeder hits the water, it's going to create a lovely cloud. So I'm just mixing that all around. Right, so this is the consistency you see here, almost like paste, very similar. And I could probably make that ever so slightly wetter, and then we're going to pack that in the feeder just enough so that when it hits the water, it explodes out, creates a lovely slop. Now I've got enough for 2, 3, 4 feeders there, and then I'll go back to my normal ground bait. I don't want to keep doing it. It depends on what the fish are doing. I don't want to bring them off the bottom. I want to make sure that I create a cloud, but the fish are staying on the bottom. So that's slopping up my ground bait. This is my normal ground bait. If I want to go back to that, I can add worms into here, I can add casters into here, I can add whatever I need. It's really easy to, if you need to change and you've done too much just to take a little bit out rather than to having to change your whole mix. So that's my working tub. It's nice to have a bit of variation to keep those fish coming. Well, look at that, another fantastic Kingsbury Water Park bream. Let's get this one in the net and we'll run through the rig we've been using. So the setup we've been using to catch these bream, I've got a 12'6" Horizon X class rod. We're fishing at 50 meters today. This rod's perfect for fishing at that distance with feeders up to about 50 gram. It's got a 2-ounce tip in. There's only a little bit of tow on the water, not a massive tow today, so a 2-ounce tip is fine, showing up all the bites, although most of those bites have taken the rod off the rest. I've coupled this up with a 5,000 Horizon reel, nice big reel, allows us to cast the distance that we need to, and this is loaded with 012 submerged braid. I picked 012 because there's a few obstacles, snags, some mussels in the water, and it just gives me a bit more confidence. We've talked about confidence earlier and using decent strong tackle, and this gives me just that. I've got a 10-pound shock leader, nice and robust, takes the strain of the cast, and it'll get me where I need to. Again, abrasion resistance, just in case there's any mussels or any sharp gravel on the bottom. Now going down, I've got a helicopter rig. All I've done is slid some feeder stops onto the line, and in the middle of those I've got a hook length swivel which allows me to change my hook lengths really quickly if I need to. The hook length, like we spoke about earlier, robust tackle. I've got 0.18, 75 centimeters of it, and a size 12 MXB3. Really strong hook, nice big hook. We're going to be using big baits. I've caught most of my fish on a big bit of worm or 2 bits of worm, and you want a big hook that's going to have lots of point showing and make sure you land those fish. Carrying on down the rig, I've got about 3.5 inches of twizzled section that's just a bit stiffer. On the end, a swivel which allows me to change my feeders. Now, the feeder I'm using at the moment is a feeder I started with. It's a 40 gram Horizon distance feeder. It's a cage feeder, and this allows me to do various things with my bait. The water here at Kingsbury Water Park on Bodymore is only shallow, so I'm not needing to use an enclosed feeder to get my bait to the bottom. What I want to do is create a column of bait through the water. I've been using a couple of different types of ground bait, sloppy ground bait, and just normal ground bait mix, and both allow me to do different things. So with the sloppy ground bait, the cage is great. It'll hit the water, the ground bait will come out, and there'll be loads of cloud in the water, and it's brilliant for pulling fish into your swim. But I'm not doing this all the time. If I want to catch the fish on the bottom, I'll use my normal ground bait mix, slightly wet, reasonably wet ground bait, pack it in, and that'll get the fish down on the bottom where I want to be catching them. A couple of other options I've got. If I want to put loads of particles in, loads of casters, dead maggots, lots of worm, I can switch to a bell feeder. This just allows me to quickly scoop up loads of particles, cap it off with ground bait, and introduce loads of particles into my swim. As it happens today, I don't feel like particles are the right way to go about it. I've only been putting a little bit of worm in through the feeder, and I can do that through the cage. Other types, again, if I want to make sure all of my bait is on the bottom, a plastic feeder like the Horizon XD feeder allows you to really pack your ground bait in nice and hard and make sure everything is getting to the bottom before it's released. I haven't used this feeder today, but it can be really important on certain days, especially when the water might be a little bit deeper. So they're the types of feeders and a super simple rig. Let's get some bait on and get back out there. Well, I think we're going to call this one the last bream of the day, and I think, looking at the size of that one, that he's the biggest of the day. Oh, struggled to get him in the net. One thing I'm going to do next time is bring a bigger net. One absolutely beautiful fish, and hopefully the tips that we've shown you today will make sure you catch more of these great big bream on your next session. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on another video. There's the best 4 bream of the day. What a brilliant day. Fantastic. Hope you got some tips and enjoyed the video. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. Beautiful.